What's up, guys? Chris Brown, otherwise known as Chain Stasis Wellness, coming at you from Train Boston with another wellness moment. Today, we're doing a Halloween episode. Not quite Halloween, but by the time you watch this, it probably will be that time or after. I'm dressed up as Gomez Adams, in case you couldn't tell. Anyways, today what we're going to talk about is a little chemical called adenosine, and we're going to touch upon how it interacts with its antagonist, caffeine. And we're going to also get into how this can affect your sleep, your performance, and your other chain links of wellness. Okay, so let's get into it. What is adenosine? Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, maybe it sounds familiar. So adenosine is an endogenous nucleoside found in every cell of the body. What does that mean? Don't worry too much about that, but we can help you understand what it means by talking about what it relates to. Okay, so adenosine is an autocoid, meaning it's something that has a localized effect that doesn't last forever. It's temporary, right? It's kind of like boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, right? It's quick. It has roles involved in blood flow, the heart, nerves, immune system, and helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle. That's a huge part of what we're talking about today. It's a real downer too. No, really, it's actually the opposite of a stimulant, right? So when we're awake, we use adenosine through what we call ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. For those of you who went through A&P classes a while back, you may have heard of that. It's actually pretty darn important because it's how we get our quick energy. It has a half-life of approximately 10 seconds, ATP, right? And so it's your fast energy source, and our bodies love that. We love to get things quick and easy, just like real life, right? As we break down ATP, it eventually turns into adenosine. So if you care, it's adenosine, then adenosine monophosphate, adenosine diphosphate, and adenosine triphosphate. So it gets broken down, and in the brain, we're going to use it as adenosine, right? It continues to accumulate in your body after it breaks down as adenosine until enough of it is built up in the brain receptors and also other places like the heart, the bone, and other parts all over the body, nervous system, etc. All right, what this does is it triggers the cell's activities to slow down. In the heart, it can help with blood pressure regulation. It can help stop arrhythmias. They're still looking at a lot of different uses for this. In the bones, it can help regulate growth and decrease inflammation, which is actually a pretty big problem. In the brain, when enough is present, it will decrease the cell activities, which will eventually lead to you falling asleep. It will also dilate blood flow in the brain through the blood vessels for better blood flow during sleep, which we really need for the processes in sleep. And eventually this accumulation turns into what we call sleep pressure. So you have enough of that adenosine building up. It makes sense. You use energy, right? The energy turns into something else, and then it builds up, and then it attaches, and our brain's like, oh, it's time to sleep. We've gone through enough of this, right? Pretty straightforward. So why don't we all just fall asleep then? Why don't we all just, it's this time, we're tired, we lie down, we sleep. How come we have trouble? Well, kids seem to do that pretty well. We should probably take some lessons from them, right? Well, I won't get into every reason or every little detail, not that I even know all of them, but the major reason that adenosine doesn't just make us fall asleep is its arch nemesis, caffeine, the antagonist, right? So everything in the body works in a cycle. I say that all the time. There's a wave, whether it goes up and down, high or low, it's always some sort of cycle, all right? That means every agonist has an antagonist to help regulate the cycle. That's homeostasis, right? Chain stasis, right? We got to find some kind of balance. We don't know what the balance is exactly. It's not always 50-50, but it's there. So caffeine, it increases dopamine levels in your brain as well as acting as that antagonist, right? So it gives you a little bit of an adrenaline boost, or epinephrine. In the brain, it's called norepinephrine. Right? We love adrenaline. We love the feeling caffeine gives us. That's why we drink our coffees, right? It stimulates everything, that sympathetic nervous system. It gets us ready to go. That's what we call coffee go juice, right? Well, that can be great most of the time. Caffeine has a lot of good effects for us. It dampens pain. It gives us more energy. It gets us more alert, right? But the caffeine will bind to the same receptors adenosine uses, and it will prevent us from feeling sleepy. And it will also vasoconstrict your blood vessels in your brain. This is why painkillers often have caffeine, because they constrict them and they stop your head from hurting. Makes sense, right? But when the caffeine wears off, not only will you potentially have an energy crash, but you might actually feel a little bit of an emotional depression too. Not usually a huge one, but if you can see those people that are kind of angry or moody after they go off of coffee or when they don't have their coffee, this could potentially be why, right? Is your love affair with caffeine a bad one? I know mine sometimes is. But let's talk about this beautiful drug here to help you manage the regulation of it, right? So the half-life of caffeine, how long it takes to break down, is about 3 hours to 100 milligrams. Okay, so if you have 100 milligrams of caffeine, an average cup of coffee probably, it's going to take 3 hours to process through your body completely. That means if you drink 200 milligrams of caffeine, like a big coffee that's fairly strong, at 3 p.m., it will stay in your system until 9 p.m. That means if you're trying to go to sleep at 9 p.m. and you still have it in your system, you're probably going to miss out a little on that sleep quality because your body hasn't built up enough sleep pressure yet. It's not being allowed to. All right, it's kind of being blocked like a dam, right? So even if you're someone who can sleep after that coffee and you're still within processing the caffeine, you may miss out on the deeper stages of sleep, stages 3 and 4. These stages are where your body processes emotional trauma, complicated information, and really sets things in memories and prints what you've learned. You can see why that could be a bad thing, right? This is why sleep is so important for young kids and why you should probably limit your caffeine for your kids. They have smaller bodies. They don't process it the same way as we do. It's probably a little bit harder for them. They also need more sleep than we do. So that's a big thing right there. So you can see how emotional trauma processing and complicated information are really important, especially for younger individuals who are developing, right? But they're also important for learning new skills, getting better at things, getting stronger. Basically, sleep is important for everything, right? So this is why the night before a big test, you're better off to just get good sleep than you are to cram late in the night. Because if you get bad sleep, you may lose a lot of what you learned. And the same thing can go for physical skills. That's why if you have a big training session or a big game, you want to get good sleep. You can remember all your plays from the playbook. You can probably react faster. You can deal with everything better if you had a better night's sleep. It doesn't seem to be what a lot of people like to do, but we don't always do rational things. Caffeine definitely has some good effects, like I said earlier, but like all things, the balance and the timing really matters. So just pay attention to that. Another thing that can affect your adenosine and caffeine interplay buildup is exercise. So after bouts of a high intensity exercise, we break down our ATP, which will lead to higher amounts of adenosine in the brain. Right? This can account for feelings of fatigue or sleepiness after exercise sometimes, but it also can help those struggling with sleep. Just be careful not to exercise too close to your sleep time, as that arousal can kind of keep you from getting to the point of sleep. Our bodies are too sympathetic and they can't tone down quick enough to actually get us to go to bed at the time we want. Additionally, your diet can affect your adenosine levels. This kind of makes sense, right? We get our energy from eating food. Right? One study showed that high protein and fat diets lead to an increase in ATP and adenosine buildup. This could just be because of eating healthier, eating less inflammatory foods helps with that. It just makes sense. But many studies have shown that individuals with neurological diseases do better on high protein, high fat diets. So there might be something there. Anyways, regardless of the reasons here, the important takeaway is that exercise can help us sleep better, provided we don't stimulate ourselves too late at night or beat ourselves down to a point of no return where there's too much stress and we can't move out of a sympathetic state. Okay, so what's the big takeaway overall with adenosine and caffeine? Well, adenosine will function properly if we get our chain links right, as all things happen, right? I continually say that. Nutrition helps us produce ATP. Exercise helps us break down and accumulate the proper amount of adenosine. And sleep helps us efficiently use and regulate adenosine in the rest of our bodies. Remember, we need it for our bones, we need it for our nervous system, we need it for basically everything. We just don't understand all of it completely yet, right? As always, if you treat one chain link right, everything else seems to fall in place easier. The whole chain moves better and it's sturdier and works together well. All right, guys. So this wasn't a deep dive, but hopefully it was a pleasant swim. Hopefully you guys learned something about it and enjoyed the talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you like this information, please share it with others. I love to hear that people learned something new and got something out of it. But until next time, thank you very much and be well.